Listen up. You won't believe the scam one mechanic tried to pull, but he picked the wrong guy to mess with. My name is Walter, 47, a software engineer at Velturi Dynamics in Phoenix for the past 8 years. But before I touched a keyboard, I spent 15 years with grease under my fingernails. I held every automotive certification the state offered, could tear down a transmission blindfolded, and built my first engine at 16. That knowledge never left me, even after I traded my coveralls for a desk job. I brought my Honda to Rodriguez Auto Repair on West Thomas Road for a simple oil change and inspection, nothing more. The car ran fine, started every morning without issue, and had never given me trouble in the 3 years I'd owned it. But Tony Rodriguez, the shop owner, had other plans. He led me to the service bay where my car sat with the hood up. "See this," he said, pointing to the dipstick, which showed dark, thick oil. "Your head gasket's blown. Oil's mixing with coolant. Engine's shot." Wait, what? How could a perfectly running car suddenly need a $5,700 rebuild? I nodded slowly, watching his face. "What exactly does that mean?" "Means the engine block is cracked. Metal shavings everywhere. If you keep driving, you'll seize the whole motor," he said, wiping his hands on a rag with practiced sympathy. "Lucky you brought it in when you did. The oil on that dipstick wasn't from my car. I changed it myself 2 weeks ago, synthetic blend, golden brown, exactly where it should be." This oil was black as tar, probably sitting in his shop for months. But I kept my expression neutral, letting him think I was just another clueless customer. "How long would the rebuild take?" I asked. "A week, maybe 10 days. Got to order parts, machine the block." "It's a big job," Tony replied, his confidence growing. I scratched my chin, playing the part. "That's a lot of money." "Listen, Walter," he said, glancing at my service paperwork, "I could try to patch it temporarily, but it'll fail within a month. Then you're looking at a full engine replacement, 8 or 9,000, easy." The man was smooth, I'll give him that. Probably been running this scam for years. What he didn't know was that I could spot a blown head gasket from 50 feet away. My car showed none of the symptoms, no white smoke from the exhaust, no coolant loss, no rough idle, no mixing of fluids. "Whatever you recommend," I said finally. "You're the expert." Tony's smile widened. "Smart choice. I'll get the paperwork started." As he walked toward the office, I took one last look at my car. The engine bay was spotless, exactly as I'd left it, no coolant stains, no oil leaks, no signs of distress. Tony Rodriguez had just made the biggest mistake of his career. He'd tried to con a certified mechanic. Stay tuned to Jake's Revenge to see how this scammer's lies unravel. Growing up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, I learned engines from my dad, who ran a small garage behind our house. He taught me that an honest mechanic's word was worth more than gold, that people trusted you with their safety and their savings. "Never take advantage," he'd say while I held his flashlight. "A customer's trust is the only thing that matters." I carried that philosophy through technical school, through my apprenticeship, and into my first job at Henderson Motors, 15 years of honest work, building a reputation one car at a time. But the industry changed. Corporate chains moved in, independent shops struggled, and good mechanics became harder to find. When Velturi Dynamics offered me a software position, I took it, better pay, cleaner hands. But I never forgot where I came from. My toolbox still sat in my garage, every wrench and socket in its place. I worked on my own cars, helped my neighbors, and sometimes missed the satisfaction of fixing something with my hands. But I never missed dealing with dishonest shop owners who gave the profession a bad name. Tony Rodriguez was exactly that type. I'd driven past his shop dozens of times, noticed the fancy waiting area and expensive equipment, too much flash for a neighborhood garage. The kind of setup that screamed overhead costs and pressure to generate revenue, honest or otherwise. After agreeing to his bogus repair, I spent the evening researching Rodriguez Auto Repair online. The reviews told a story: elderly customers complaining about sudden, expensive diagnoses, out-of-state drivers hit with emergency repairs, college students charged thousands for critical work their cars supposedly needed. One review read, "Brought my grandmother's car in for brake pads. They said the transmission was failing and charged her $4,000. Car runs fine 6 months later. Another, stopped for an oil change during a road trip. They claimed my engine was about to seize and needed immediate work. Took it to another shop 50 miles away, nothing wrong with it. The pattern was clear. Tony targeted people who couldn't easily verify his claims or get second opinions. He had confidence, a professional setup, and just enough automotive knowledge to sound convincing. But he'd gotten greedy and sloppy. I printed out the most damaging reviews and filed them in a folder. Then I called the Arizona Department of Consumer Affairs and asked about reporting automotive fraud. The woman who answered sounded tired, like she'd heard this story before. "We get dozens of complaints about repair shops every month," she said. "Problem is proving intent to defraud. Most of the time, it's one person's word against another's. What if someone had documentation, video evidence? That would change everything. We could actually build a case." I hung up and looked at my toolbox. Time to get back in the business, at least temporarily. Don't miss what happens next on Jake's Revenge, where we expose the truth and fight for justice. The next morning, Tony called with an update. "Bad news, Walter. It's worse than I thought." I sat in my office cubicle, watching code compile on my monitor. "How much worse?" "Found metal shavings in the oil pan. Looks like the pistons are scored, too. Going to need a complete rebuild, block, heads, pistons, the works. We're looking at $6,500 now. An extra $900, just like that." I kept my voice steady. "When can you start?" "Soon as you approve the work order. I'll email it over." The work order arrived 10 minutes later, filled with technical terms and part numbers that would intimidate most customers: cylinder head resurfacing, piston ring replacement, crankshaft grinding, all unnecessary work on an engine that ran perfectly. At the bottom, in bold letters, total cost, $6,500. I stared at the screen for a long moment. This wasn't just fraud, it was systematic theft. Tony had turned automotive repair into a criminal enterprise, preying on people's trust and ignorance. How many customers had he robbed? How many elderly drivers had he convinced to empty their savings for repairs they didn't need? The anger came slowly, building like pressure in a hydraulic system. My dad would have been disgusted. Every honest mechanic I'd ever worked with would have been ashamed to share the same profession with Tony Rodriguez. But anger alone wouldn't stop him. I needed a plan. I called Rodriguez Auto Repair back. "Tony, I've been thinking about this repair cost. It's a lot of money." "I understand, Walter, but think of it as an investment. This rebuild will give you another 100,000 miles, easy. Could I get a payment plan? Maybe half now, half when it's done?" Sure. Whatever works for you. Main thing is getting your car back on the road safely." His eagerness revealed everything. A legitimate shop would have encouraged me to get a second opinion on such expensive work. Tony just wanted my money as quickly as possible. "I'll bring the deposit by this afternoon," I said. "Perfect. I'll get started right away." After hanging up, I opened a new document on my computer and began typing, "Case file, Rodriguez Auto Repair Fraud Investigation." I included Tony's initial diagnosis, his phone call escalating the cost, and the detailed work order. Then I researched Arizona's recording laws, single-party consent state. I could legally record conversations without Tony's knowledge. I looked around the office at my coworkers typing quietly at their desks. They trusted me to write clean code, to meet deadlines, to solve problems with logic and patience. But none of them knew about my other skills, the ones I'd learned in service bays and parts counters, the ability to diagnose problems and find solutions with my hands. Tony Rodriguez had picked the wrong customer to scam. He was about to learn that some problems couldn't be fixed with lies and false diagnoses. Time to get to work. I stopped at an electronics store on my way to Rodriguez Auto Repair and bought a small digital recorder, the kind journalists use for interviews, $40 for insurance against Tony's scam. I clipped it inside my jacket pocket and practiced turning it on without looking. The shop's waiting area looked expensive: leather chairs, flat screen television, coffee machine with fancy pods, too expensive for an honest neighborhood garage. This was theater, designed to justify inflated prices and convince customers they were getting premium service. Tony emerged from the service bay, wiping his hands on a shop rag. "Walter, good to see you. Ready to get that engine sorted out?" I started the recorder. "Actually, Tony, I've been thinking about this repair. $6,500 is a lot of money. Mind if I take a look at the damage myself?" His smile flickered for just a moment. "Of course not. Though, I gotta warn you, it's pretty technical stuff. Most folks can't really tell what they're looking at." He led me to my Honda, which now had various parts scattered around it: an air filter, spark plugs, what looked like a valve cover. Props for his performance. My actual engine was still intact, running perfectly the last time I'd driven it. "See here?" Tony pointed to a container of dark, sludgy oil. "This came out of your crankcase. Metal particles everywhere. Engine's eating itself from the inside." I bent down and examined the oil. "Old, contaminated, definitely not from my car." "Where exactly did you find the metal shavings?" "Right in the oil pan." "Want to see the drain plug?" Metal filings stuck right to the magnet. He produced a drain plug that was indeed covered in metallic debris. Impressive prop work, probably kept a collection of damaged parts to show skeptical customers. But the plug was the wrong size for my Honda's oil pan. "Tony, this drain plug doesn't fit my car." "What?" He looked genuinely surprised, glancing between the plug and my engine. "Must have grabbed the wrong one. Got a lot of cars in here, you know how it is, right?" I kept my expression neutral. "Can I see the actual plug from my car?" "Well, that's already cleaned and reinstalled. Can't really remove it again without making a mess," he said, thinking fast, trying to cover his mistake. "Trust me, it was just as bad." I nodded slowly. "And the head gasket failure, can you show me where the coolant and oil are mixing?" Tony hesitated. "Already drained all the fluids." But the damage was obvious: milky residue in the radiator, oil floating in the coolant reservoir. Classic signs. "I'd like to see the coolant you drained." "We recycle all fluids immediately. Environmental regulations, you understand?" Every answer was a deflection. Every piece of evidence conveniently unavailable for inspection. But Tony was committed to his story now, probably figuring I was just another nervous customer asking questions before writing a big check. "Look, Walter, I understand your concerns. This is a major repair, but I've been doing this for 20 years, and I know engine damage when I see it." He leaned against my car, trying to project confidence. "You can take it somewhere else for a second opinion, but you'll be looking at a tow truck and another diagnostic fee. And honestly, most shops will tell you the same thing." I almost smiled. Tony was suggesting the exact thing a legitimate mechanic would encourage: a second opinion. He was that confident in his scam, certain no customer would actually follow through. "No, I trust your judgment," I said. "You're the professional. I'll get you that deposit check." His relief was visible. "Smart choice. I'll get started on ordering parts this afternoon. Should have your car back to you in 8, maybe 10 days. As I wrote the check for $3,250, Tony chatted about the rebuild process, how much better the engine would run, how this was really an investment in the car's future. Every word was recorded. I handed him the check and shook his hand. "Thanks for catching this before it became a bigger problem. That's what we're here for, peace of mind." Walking to my rental car, I checked the recorder, crystal clear audio. Every lie documented. Tony had just taken my money while promising to tear apart a perfectly good engine, but he'd also given me everything I needed to destroy him. That evening, I called the Arizona Department of Consumer Affairs and asked to speak with an investigator. 20 minutes later, I was connected to Detective Maria Gonzalez from the Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division. "Mr. Harris, you mentioned having evidence of automotive fraud, recorded conversations, fake evidence, the whole scam documented." I explained Tony's operation, the contaminated oil, the wrong drain plug, the constantly changing estimates. How do you know the diagnosis was false? I'm a certified automotive technician with 15 years of experience. I know what engine damage looks like, and my car shows none of the symptoms. Detective Gonzalez was quiet for a moment. Would you be willing to work with our office as a cooperating witness? This type of systematic fraud is exactly what we're trying to stop. What would that involve? Continuing to play the customer while we gather evidence. We'd wire you for conversations, maybe have you bring other vehicles in for fake repairs. Build a comprehensive case. I thought about the elderly customers and those online reviews. The college students charge thousands for unnecessary work. How long has Rodriguez been doing this? We've had complaints about his shop for 3 years, but never enough evidence to prosecute. If you're willing to help, we could finally shut him down. 2 days later, I met Detective Gonzalez at a coffee shop near my office. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the careful demeanor of someone who'd seen too many scams. She slid a small device across the table. Wireless transmitter, audio, and video. Just clip it inside your shirt. Press this button to activate. How many other shops are you investigating? Rodriguez is part of a larger problem. Arizona has some of the weakest automotive repair regulations in the country. Shops like his are popping up everywhere, targeting tourists and elderly residents. I picked up the transmitter, smaller than a matchbook. What's the long-term goal? Criminal charges, civil penalties, license revocation. But we need ironclad evidence, recorded conversations, documented fraud, financial records if we can get them. The plan was simple. I'd continue playing the concerned customer while Tony performed his fake rebuild. Detective Gonzalez would coordinate with the Attorney General's office to monitor the investigation and gather additional evidence. One more thing, she said as we prepared to leave. We've identified at least 12 other customers who've been scammed by Rodriguez in the past 6 months. Your case could help us get restitution for all of them. That number hit me hard. 12 families, probably tens of thousands of dollars in unnecessary repairs. Tony wasn't just a dishonest mechanic, he was running a criminal enterprise. Over the next week, I played my part perfectly. I called Tony for updates, expressed concern about the repair timeline, even brought him coffee during one visit. Each conversation was recorded, each lie documented. Tony grew more comfortable with me, even started bragging about his diagnostic skills. Most customers don't know a head gasket from a transmission filter, he said during one visit. They hear engine damage and just want it fixed. Must be frustrating dealing with people who don't understand cars sometimes, but it's good business. You know, people pay for peace of mind. His casual admission of exploiting customer ignorance was captured in high definition. But the real breakthrough came when I asked to see my car's progress. Tony led me to the service bay where my Honda sat exactly as I'd left it. No disassembly, no new parts, no evidence of any work being performed. Still waiting on a few components, he explained. Should be here tomorrow. I nodded and smiled, knowing Detective Gonzalez was watching everything through the hidden camera. Tony Rodriguez had just sealed his own fate. Detective Gonzalez moved fast once she had the evidence. Within 2 days, she'd obtained a warrant to investigate Rodriguez Auto Repair's financial records. The Attorney General's office coordinated with the state licensing board to review Tony's certifications and business permits. We found something interesting, Detective Gonzalez told me during our next meeting. Rodriguez Auto Repair has been reporting revenue that doesn't match their legitimate customer base. Either they're doing a lot more business than it appears, or they're generating income through fraudulent repairs. The investigation had grown beyond my single case. Other customers had come forward after seeing a news story about automotive fraud, each with similar stories of sudden, expensive diagnoses and unnecessary repairs. The Attorney General's office was building a pattern of systematic fraud spanning 3 years. My role continued to be the cooperative customer. I called Tony regularly, asking about parts delivery and repair timelines. Each conversation revealed more about his operation. He mentioned having to educate customers about engine problems, about the importance of trusting professional diagnoses over second opinions. "You made the right choice, Walter," he said during one call. "Some guys would have tried to get by with patch jobs and temporary fixes. That's just throwing money away." During my next visit to check on progress, I wore both the wire and a hidden camera. Tony proudly showed me parts he claimed to have ordered for my engine, pistons, gaskets, bearings, a complete rebuild kit. But when I asked to see the part numbers, they didn't match my Honda's specifications. "Generic rebuild kit," he explained quickly. "Works for most four-cylinder engines." That was another lie captured on camera. Engine rebuilds require precise, vehicle-specific components. Using generic parts would cause immediate failure and potentially dangerous driving conditions. Detective Gonzalez was building her case systematically: financial records, customer complaints, recorded conversations, video evidence of Tony's deceptive practices. But she wanted one more element: catching him in the act of presenting false evidence to a customer. "We need him to show you fabricated damage," she explained. "Something that proves intent to defraud beyond any reasonable doubt." The opportunity came when Tony called to schedule my car's completion. "Good news, Walter. Found the problem and fixed it. Want to come in tomorrow so I can show you what we replaced?" The next morning, I arrived at Rodriguez Auto Repair with Detective Gonzalez monitoring from a surveillance van parked across the street. Tony was waiting with my car in the service bay, hood up, new parts scattered around the engine. "Take a look at this," he said, holding up what appeared to be a damaged head gasket. "See those burn marks? That's where coolant was leaking into the combustion chamber. Another few hundred miles, and your engine would have seized completely." The gasket was damaged, but it was clearly old and weathered, probably removed from a junkyard engine. Tony had prepared props to justify his $6,000 fraud. "And here's your old pistons." He showed me a set of scored, damaged pistons that had obviously never been in my car. Metal shavings everywhere. "Lucky we caught this when we did." I examined the pistons, noting they were the wrong size for my engine. Tony was so confident in his performance that he hadn't even bothered to source matching parts. "Incredible," I said. "I had no idea it was this bad." "Most people don't. That's why you need professionals to diagnose these problems." Tony's final statement was perfect. He just admitted to exploiting customer ignorance while showing me fabricated evidence of damage that never existed. Detective Gonzalez had everything she needed to destroy him. The investigation was complete. Now came the reckoning. 2 days later, I received a call from Tony. "Walter, your car is ready for pickup. Runs like new. I'll be right over." Detective Gonzalez and 3 other investigators were already in position when I arrived at Rodriguez Auto Repair. Tony met me in the waiting area, confident and smiling, completely unaware his world was about to collapse. "Let's take her for a test drive," he said, dangling my keys. "You're going to love how smooth she runs now." We walked toward my Honda when the front door chimed. Detective Gonzalez entered, followed by 2 investigators and a uniformed police officer. Tony Rodriguez, Detective Gonzalez displayed her badge. Arizona Attorney General's Office. "You're under arrest for consumer fraud, theft by deception, and operating an unlicensed automotive repair facility." Tony's confident smile vanished instantly. His face went pale as he looked between the investigators and me. "What's going on here? This has to be some kind of mistake." "No mistake, Mr. Rodriguez," Detective Gonzalez said, nodding toward me. "Mr. Harris has been working with our office for the past 2 weeks, documenting your fraudulent repair practices." Tony's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "Fraudulent?" "Walter needed an engine rebuild. I showed him the damage." "You showed him fabricated evidence," I said quietly. "Wrong-sized pistons, contaminated oil from another vehicle, a head gasket that was never in my car." The color drained completely from Tony's face. "How did you?" "I'm a certified automotive technician with 15 years of experience. I know what real engine damage looks like. I pulled out my certification wallet, showing him credentials he'd never bothered to ask about. You tried to scam the wrong customer. Tony staggered backward, gripping the service counter for support. This is impossible. You can't just, we have everything recorded, Detective Gonzalez interrupted, placing handcuffs on his wrists. Every conversation, every false diagnosis, every piece of fake evidence. You have the right to remain silent. Tony Rodriguez was sentenced to 5 years in prison and ordered to pay $1.2 million in restitution after investigators discovered he had systematically defrauded over 300 customers using fake diagnostics and unnecessary repairs. My undercover investigation provided the crucial evidence that led to his conviction, with video recordings of his deceptive practices becoming the centerpiece of the prosecution's case. His auto repair business was permanently shut down, and his mechanic licenses were revoked in all states. The Arizona Attorney General's office recovered over $800,000 in assets, which were distributed among his victims as partial restitution. His wife divorced him and took their children when she learned about his criminal enterprise that had funded their lifestyle for years. The case became a landmark prosecution that led to stronger consumer protection laws and mandatory certification requirements for automotive repair facilities. Tony's mugshot appeared in consumer advocacy materials as a warning about predatory mechanics who prey on customer trust and automotive ignorance. His reputation in the automotive industry was so thoroughly destroyed that, even after serving his sentence, no legitimate shop would employ him. He was forced to work minimum wage jobs while facing ongoing civil lawsuits from defrauded customers seeking additional damages. 6 months after Tony's arrest, I received a commendation from the state attorney general for my role in exposing automotive fraud. The ceremony was small, held in a conference room downtown, but the impact was significant. 12 other repair shops were investigated based on evidence gathered during the Rodriguez case, leading to additional arrests and license revocations. I kept the commendation on my desk at Velturi Dynamics, a reminder that some problems require more than coding skills to solve. My unique combination of technical expertise and investigative patience had protected hundreds of innocent drivers from predatory mechanics who betray the trust every honest mechanic works to earn. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even, it's making sure the right person gets exactly what they deserve. Thanks for watching Jake's Revenge, where we expose scams and fight for justice. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories of truth and retribution.